Thank you, Leslie, for the honor of being in your pulpit. She's so kind, she even let me use her microphone. And perhaps you don't really understand how privileged that is, but I don't give my microphone to everyone. I feel as though the sermon has been preached. So everything I'm going to offer is commentary to the sermon. I've been sitting there figuring out how to throw out things that don't seem as important. But I do want to talk about the church that we can become that makes what those children did the future. That points to the future. And I want to talk about why we are called to that work. Just 51 weeks ago, I was all of the microphones, right?
Privileges are what they are.
51 weeks ago, you installed Reverend Leslie Takahashi as your minister. I was here for the occasion to celebrate and to be a part of what we were doing that day. It was a lovely, lovely day. It's always tough to leave Virginia in February and come to California, but I did. But I had a heavy heart because I had been asked to please think about becoming a candidate for UU president. And it was weighing heavily on me, and there was lots of things going on, and I went and sat in your memorial garden. Because I knew if I sat in your memorial garden as I might sit in my own, I could think clearly about whether or not this was something I was being called to do, or just something I was being called out of, something I was being misled on. I like to think about the ancient ones. I like to think about the ones who went before. I like to think about the people who started this congregation and others. Because every time I do, I realize what a lesson that is in the resilience of our faith. The problems they dealt with, the challenges they made. And when I hear us get into a discussion about the technology of welcoming the nuns,
Or the technology of welcoming the microphone.
I always feel weird holding these,
I know. I can't help you on that one.
It's okay, it's okay. As I welcomed, so I was doing all that on my Catholic voice, I guess, Catholic school will do that to you. Stand up, Miss Pupke, and say that again aloud. I know you can relate, some of you. So, when I think about the ones who went before, the ones who did all the hard work, I realize that our conversations about the little things, like where shall we buy our coffee and who's coming early to brew it, all these things that, occupy our energies, like will we offer Al in this classroom or that classroom? And how many people are really interested in making that trip down to Sacramento? That's not important. What's important was up here, right? How do we make for ourselves a religion that is truly resilient and alive? How do we make of our faith something so deeply lived, not by just the generations past, but by the generations future? I think as Unitarian Universalists, we don't realize how radical this proposition is of who we are. The notion that people who don't believe in God could be part of a religious community, do you ever get that? It is a remarkable assertion. It is the ultimate statement of pluralism.
It is the idea that every human being is so precious and valuable that it is the job of every other human being to knit them into the fabric of who we are. And yet we are so far from doing that. It's not just that 4 girls were killed in Birmingham 59 years ago. It's that we still have in our hearts the sense of separation and judgment. It means that Tamir Rice was shot 3 years ago. If our religion cannot address those issues of loss and separation and us versus them, then there is no value in the religion we claim. And yet, if we become just a comfortable suburban religion that does well in cities and is neglected badly in rural and small places, then you and I have no claim to the glory. The faith that I serve is a faith that you taught me. You teach me still, as does every congregation of 1,000 teaches. The faith that I learned, I've been taught in partnership with interfaith groups, where we welcomed the homeless or simply went down to advocate for a change in their living circumstance, where we raised money together because we knew the world was not as it should be. And in this hour, in this time, when we know how very broken our democracy is, and it is deeply broken, when we know how unequal our economics are, and they are deeply unequal, then we must begin to ask, what does the religion of the next century need to be in order that you and I might see grandchildren's grandchildren live differently? So, when I've come to you today, I want to ask, are you too wondering what we must do to become the faith that will change this world? That these young people just asked us to change. How shall it change? I believe that there are several things that we'll need to do. But among the most important is that you and I need to find a way to welcome back a sense of moral language into the common public square. We have become so preoccupied as a religion with speaking about the political language because the politics is so difficult that we have forgotten about sitting in community and discerning together what truths we must uphold so that you and I are of a one single mind together, that we share a deep commitment that we are willing to serve. You and I need to welcome the young folks who have different ways of doing things, who don't join churches to join committees. You and I must welcome the seeker who never did church before. You and I must examine our continual use of the word denomination, which says that we will privilege Christian tradition and conceptualize ourselves that way, when perhaps all along that's been part of our challenge. And you and I must begin to face that there are needs for a deeper, wider, higher consciousness that we were not born to. In a world where every bit of good we do seems to be met with an unhappy and difficult opposite, where we can work hard and be active citizens and yet find ourselves unable to speak across the gulf of separation, where we find that though there are fewer wars, they seem never to end. For us, we must ask, what is the mind that religion has to build up so that the glory can come? So for all of us who are living in this 21st century Unitarian Universalism, we have to create this new moral language that is inviting to all people, as radically as we were inviting to people who did not believe in God, as radically as we were to people who were not like us, something we struggle with today. And we must serve the worthy truth that religion either changes the world and our belief in its possibility, or it simply supports our own prejudices. For Unitarian Universalism, I believe what we are required to do is to work very hard to free ourselves from our participation in systems that abuse the earth, pretend that people's value is deeply unequal, and to begin to explore a true theology which says that there is no glory unless we all work to share in it together. Radically hospitable, radically committed to partnership with others, radically inclusive of the ideas of others, radically respectful of people who differ in opinions from ourselves, and radically committed to the belief that religion exists so that you and I may know one day that the glory will be ours, all of ours. May we be the ones to make it so. My good friend, Reverend Leslie Takahashi, invited me to come and preach here, but as in the first service, I find that the sermon has already been preached. It says in Isaiah, "And a child will lead you." And so it has been this morning, has it not? So we have this question, I think, to add about the resilience of faith and the possibility of who we will be 100 years hence. And it is this: what is it that you and I must do in order to make that world possible? You see, because we're not born with the consciousness needed to stop the array of separation and death. I was born in a time of post-war environment. I was born in the 50s. And the environment to which I was born was a consciousness that said that we were always right, and that we had won for democracy, and that there was a great opportunity to expand infinitely into a world that could handle anything we asked of it. And it wasn't even true then, and it's less so now. So how does Unitarian Universalism become a lever a way of lifting ourselves up so that our grandchildren's grandchildren live in a world of beloved community. We sometimes think we have only our day's agenda to work on. We have to worry about who is going to make the coffee and what committee is going to take this responsibility and how we can get to Sacramento to witness. But all the systems that we use matter not. If in mind and heart our faith doesn't tell us we must believe in the extraordinary truth that we can lift the world's consciousness from its conflict-ridden, fearful, not enough mentality into a generous and loving abundance to which every one of us must come to witness. Our work used to be important. Lately, it feels essential for the world. It feels absolutely essential that we make a claim about the possibility of a religion that's so inclusive that it will make sacrifices and commitments to include everyone. No souls thrown overboard. I had a longer sermon to give you. I had one with good details. I had crafted a phrase or two exactly right. You would have gone out singing them. But instead, all I can ask is that you and I hold the vision of how the glory will come, so that all beings will be lifted up by this faith of ours in some way, shape, or form with every other person of goodwill and people gathered to make this world beloved community. May we all be the ones who make it so.